Welcome to Lesson 6 on photosynthesis. Starting with SC16, which is basically to explain the carbon cycle. So you're going to start by answering questions 1 to 3, and you're going to need to watch the video which I'm going to show you in a second. Okay, so if you go into lesson 6, you can see point number 2 is the video link that you need. So you need to click onto that video link and then you will see this video here. So I want you to watch the first part of the video until it reaches the water cycle. So once they reach the water cycle, which is the bit that looks like this, then you need to stop watching and then fast forward to 2 minutes 20, okay? So you're gonna fast forward, you can see me fast forwarding here, to 2 minutes 20, and that then will tell you about the carbon cycle. So the very beginning part up to the water cycle is relevant, and then from 2 minutes 20 is also relevant. All the answers to questions 1 to 3 are in there, so if you missed them, go back, watch the video again, and then keep watching it until you get all the answers to questions 1 to 3. So please do not move on unless you have completed questions 1 to 3. So you need to mark your answers now, please. So make sure that you are adding in anything you missed. So question number 1, what different forms does carbon take? It can be carbon in the air, carbon in plants, carbon in animals, carbon in bacteria and fungi, or carbon in fossil fuels. Question number 2, what different processes convert carbon from one form to another? Well, photosynthesis, respiration, burning, also known as combustion, fossilization, and eating are all possible answers. You only need 4 to get the 4 marks. And then question 3, does the overall amount of carbon atoms change? No, and if you watch the beginning of the video, you should have seen that thing about how there's a finite number of atoms and they just get recycled around the world throughout time. Okay, so please do not move on unless you have thoroughly understood what the carbon cycle is. If you haven't, go back, watch it again, and make sure you've marked your answers thoroughly. So moving on to SC17, which is to link the carbon cycle with the increased use of fossil fuels. So we're going to be explaining how burning fossil fuels has changed the levels of atmospheric CO2. So that means carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Really difficult question, so I'm going to talk you through the answer. So what I'd like you to do is just listen carefully while I go through the answer and then try and write it out in your own words. I will then go through a perfect answer afterwards, so don't panic if you're struggling. The 3 fossil fuels, coal, oil and gas, are all stores of carbon. They actually store huge amounts of carbon because they are made out of molecules called hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are long chains of carbon atoms joined to some hydrogen atoms. You should remember from our energy topic that fossil fuels were formed millions and millions of years ago. This means that the carbon that is stored up in them has been kept out of the atmosphere for millions and millions of years. So how is us burning these fossil fuels affect the carbon cycle and the levels of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere? As we burn or combust fossil fuels, we release the carbon inside them. The carbon in the hydrocarbon molecules gets turned into carbon dioxide during the combustion reaction. This carbon dioxide is then released into our atmosphere. This means that the levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide increase every time that we burn fossil fuels. And let's just quickly link back to the carbon cycle. You can see fossil fuels down the bottom and how they fit into the carbon cycle. Should now be able to answer this question. Please use 3 bullet points. Please pause here, do not move on until you have written your answer because we will be marking it next. So I would like you to pause on the next picture, read carefully through my perfect answer and compare it to your own. See how many marks out of 3 you can give yourself. Do not move on unless you have marked and improved your answer. Moving on to SC18, when we're going to look at how photosynthesis is crucial to all food chains. Again, this is really difficult, so I'm going to go through the answer first and then you're going to try answering it in your own words, and then I'll put the perfect answer afterwards. Light is a form of energy. The sunlight that travels to our planet is what powers almost every chemical reaction that happens. One of these chemical reactions is photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, plants make glucose, but what's so extraordinary is that this glucose is a store of chemical energy. Essentially, the plant changes the light energy that it receives from the sun into chemical energy which can be stored. Animals are not able to make their own food and they are not able to use the sun's energy in this way. Therefore, primary consumers have to eat plants in order to get energy. They take the stored energy in the glucose and use it for the life processes. This means that all food chains start with a producer or plant. Therefore, if plants couldn't photosynthesize or we didn't have photosynthesizing plants, all food chains would immediately collapse. So let's just quickly link this to the carbon cycle. You can see here that photosynthesis on the left is part of the carbon cycle, and animals eating plants is also part of the carbon cycle. See if you can now answer this question. Please use 3 bullet points. Please pause here and do not move on until you have answered the question, because we are going to mark it now. Please pause on the next picture so that you can read through my perfect answer and compare it to your own. Make sure you make any improvements that you need to make and give yourself a mark out of 3. Remember, you don't have to have the exact same wording as me, but you do need to have the key concepts. Please do not move on unless you have marked and improved your answer. On to SC19, explain why photosynthesis is crucial to maintaining the composition of the Earth's atmosphere. Again, this is a complex question, so I'm going to go through the answer and then you're going to try writing your own. During photosynthesis, plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air and they then store it as carbon in the form of glucose. This means that carbon that was once part of carbon dioxide in the air is now part of the plant. Therefore, the levels of CO2 in the air have been reduced by the process of photosynthesis. All living things have to respire in order to survive. This means that they take the oxygen out of the atmosphere and they convert it into CO2, therefore raising the levels of CO2. Plants are incredible because not only do they absorb excess CO2, but they also produce oxygen, therefore replenishing the oxygen that had been used up by respiration. You now need to have a go at this question using 3 bullet points to structure it, please. Make sure that you pause here and do not move on until you've fully answered the question, because we will be marking it next. Pause on the following photo, read carefully through my perfect answer and compare it to your own. Then you need to upload your answer into this lesson on Shobi so that I can give you some feedback. Do not move on until you have uploaded your answer to Shobi, please. If you still have some time left, you can either do some of the extension or prep activities, or you can have a go at the test questions, which I am sending a copy home of. If you are doing the test questions, there is a copy on Shobi if you didn't get them posted home. And if you are doing them, I would like you to make sure that you do one question and then mark it. The answers are at the back of the booklet. Then move on to the next one. This prevents you from making the same mistakes over and over again. And that is the end of the topic.